Hello, my name is Matt Bird, and welcome to the PublishU Podcast, where we feature the real life stories of authors from around the world. Today, I'm genuinely delighted to be joined by Chris Jones from Essex in the United Kingdom, who has written his second book called The Efficient School. Chris, welcome.
Matt, it's always a pleasure to be here, and thank you. Yeah, second, we're motoring.
Absolutely. So, Chris, you lead Smart Curriculum. It's an organization dedicated to supporting leadership in schools to give children the very best education possible, or at least that's how I explain it. And it's great you're here. And your second book. So, the first book was called The Perfect Timetable,
That's right. Yes, the perfect timetable.
and now The Efficient School. So, you're actually on a roll because you're doing a whole series of four books.
Well, four are planned at the moment. There's lots more there, but we'll see. So four, in fact, all lined up and ready to go. So we've got to finish off the last two in
Yeah.
terms of detail. But yes, it
Yeah.
is a package, and I guess it's a bit of the John Grisham. I think the three name title is good. So yeah, the perfect timetable, the efficient school. That's where we are now.
Fantastic. So, Chris, what inspired you to write a whole series of books? Why not just one?
I think, actually, it's probably something that you said to me, Matt, about what people buy. If I was to try and put all of that stuff in one book, it would be too big and too expensive. And I think taking good teaching and learning strategy, chunk it down, get it into manageable sizes, and deal with it. And so the kind of four sections that we're looking at are, they're real, they're sort of deep content in themselves, but they are focusing on the things that are important. And that's, where we've started from curriculum design. Money is where we are now, so what we're investing in schools and how we're getting good value for money. That's why the efficient school is where we are here. It's a
Yeah,
current issue. So chunking is the answer to that question. It's,
yeah,
making it so it's digestible.
yeah. Amazing. So we're going to come back and dive into the book in a few minutes. But Chris, what got you so interested in education? I mean, you've been in this for a couple of decades. I mean,
Well, a bit more than that. Actually, this is 41 years of professional teaching this year. As the term closes, this year would be. I started teaching in 1985. I'd been involved in education before that. I think we've said at other places. I've actually been teaching since I was 16, in the sense of in school and working that through. So that's an awful lot longer than that 40 years. Um, but yeah, look, I was a professional teacher. I spent 25 years at the chalk face, as they say. Started as a training teacher and then ended as a school leader. But for the last 16 years, I stepped out of that kind of professional world, in the sense of employed sense, and I've been working. Whether it's called freelance or independently, I still consider myself a practitioner because I've been in school a lot of those days, working with leaders, sitting in their offices, wandering the corridors, sitting in classrooms with teachers and leaders, using that kind of taught experience and taking it back to leaders and working with them.
Yeah. So, Chris, you are not a man of theory, you're a man of practice. You've been in this education world for a couple of decades or more. Is that right?
Well, this summer it will be 41 years. I started in
Wow.
1985, so I've been around for a while. 25 years at the chalk face, as they say. 16 years working with leaders. On our website, we talk about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Rightly, the education profession is moving into a research-led element, so there needs to be that academia. It's important, and we need to do things that are considered and well thought through. But I'm the kind of person that would like to turn that theory into practice. So we are the practice. That's what we talk about ourselves as practitioners. Very much led or leading that kind of. So how do you turn that research into reality? What do you do with it? What does it look like? And how do we support you to make that happen? So yeah, very much walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Amazing, amazing. So this new book in the Smart Curriculum series is called The Efficient School. And you mentioned earlier this is about money.
Mm.
Um, I mean, public sector education, it's renowned for being short of money. Um, I kind of get a little bit frustrated with the narrative because we can always use more money,
Yeah.
but isn't a better approach, and maybe this is what the book is about, is to be smarter about what we have rather than griping about what we don't have.
I, I could tell lots and lots of stories about money that we've found that's being, it's wrong to say misused, because everybody, if you're in if you're in the public sector, you're doing it for moral purpose. There is
Yes.
you're certainly not teaching because you're going to earn a mint. That's not why you're there. But when we talk about in England, it's a 80-90 billion pound business. So the question is, and every taxpayer should be asking the question, is it being used for great purpose? Is it doing all that it needs to do? And at the moment, there's all the questions about special education needs and whether there's enough money to do that. And then, local authorities that are approaching bankruptcy because they don't have enough money to pay for the things that are there. Now, I would suggest there is money there, whether it's enough or not enough. Let's be good at what we're spending now. Let's be efficient with it. That's the question I'm kind of approaching. There are measures that the government, because it's using taxpayers' money to pay for a service, there are measures that they are putting in place. The question is whether just measuring those things and whether you meet the kind of standards, whether that's enough. And I would suggest across the country, because of different contexts, different deliverables, we do need to get greater understanding. So the efficient school is more about, let's understand what we're doing. Let's have a narrative. Let's have a description of what that looks like, what we're doing. And in your context, is it fit for purpose? And if you were going to change that, what would you do? What would you focus on? So we kind of get into those elements. So there's lots of reflective points through the books, asking deeper questions, getting into why, what does it look like in your context? Is this necessary? Is it legacy practice? Are there things we could do differently? And so that's the kind of measure of the book. It's not saying you must do this, this, and this. There's an element of that. Start looking, start understanding what is it you do and how is that serving the needs of the learners in your environment.
Beautiful. I love the way you framed that, Chris. And sometimes what you need is an external pair of eyes on something, don't you? Because when you're living in it day to day, you can't see the wood for the trees. And sometimes to have somebody come in as an advisor like you and your team at Smart Curriculum, or whether it's a book like The Efficient School where you pick up, that just helps you ask some probing questions to maybe spot patterns or spot things that because you're so close to it, you don't see in the day to day.
That's absolutely true, Matt. And the reality is that in a lot of public sector organizations, there's the kind of typicality and there's legacy. We've always done it this way, so don't change it. And we know a lot of people say about government systems, not just England, but across the world, it takes a long time to move a ship. Turning something around, it takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of impetus. And it's easier to leave it alone, particularly when you look at the typical political cycles and personalities within the cycles. Now, leave it alone, it's too difficult and it might have implications on my position if I'm a politician. So there's the impetus to change, the impetus to really understand. I'm a political being as much as anybody is. That we've got to understand that context. Unfortunately, it's hitting the private sector as much as it is the state sectors now. So private schools are hit by all sorts of tax implications and funding and money, and particularly now the birth rate falling. I mean, that's the adage we used to have, do what you've always done, get what you've always got. Well, the reality is it's changing. It's you really need deep understanding. So if the birth rate is falling at the rate that it's being suggested, and that's across the world. I hear that story. I've heard that story, even this week in Hong Kong, in the Middle East, people are talking about the birth rate and what that's going to do to schools. And the reality is that means class sizes are going to be smaller. So the money coming in, whether that's state funded or privately funded, is going to be different. So, we need to get into deep understanding. That's
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah, yeah. So, Chris, if a leader in education, a leader in a school, is listening to this podcast today, and they're thinking, how could this book help me in the pressure we're under? I mean, make it really, really straight and really, um, yeah, blunt, because we need blunt. We need blunt questions and blunt answers.
Well,
What would you say to them?
The last chapter in the book is the leadership questions and the evaluation and review. So I would say, if you want to start reading, buy the book, go to the last chapter and answer the questions. And they are reflective questions that just gets deep into, do you know what's going on in your school in terms of the priorities that you've set, and how is the timetable serving you? Whether, that's a very secondary question, but in terms of the metrics, how are they serving your vision and values currently? And really go through that with your leadership team, and you will get some interesting answers. We believe this, we believe that. No, so you come to alignment. Those kind of questions drive you to that. Now, you might say, well, that's not a money question, that's a values and vision question. Well, if you believe what you're saying you believe in, and the money is not kind of stacking up, if it's not getting you to those things, that's where you've got to begin. What do you believe? What do you value? What are you putting your money into? And then you can get into, well, how can it be reshaped? How can it be modeled? And at that point, I would say the efficient school takes you into the perfect timetable. And then obviously I would say then the impactful curriculum and the leaders' perspective are the ones that will follow, because they are the things that you'll drive change. You will drive what's important. So that's why go back to your first question. That's why there are 4 books in the series. That's why these elements kind of lead to each other.
Yeah.
My experience is people start at different points. Some start with the money, some start with the practice, some start with an ambition for a bigger or different curriculum. Some start with, my team can't deliver it, or are challenged in delivering it, or we're not there. How do we do that? So that's why the 4 books.
Interesting. And it's like the management accounts of a school potentially tell you more about a school's mission and values than the sheet that's been printed and stuck on the notice board.
Absolutely. And again, my experience of the conversations are, wow, I didn't realize that was that important, that kind of, so that tells me a story. Do you know, if I told you that most school budgets invest less than 40% of their total revenue on in-classroom activity, that's typical across the globe. So less than 4%, and in some schools it's less than 1%. So there may be a £10 million, however that translates in currency, a £10 million school, they spend less than 1% of that on the classroom. Forget the teacher, because obviously you've got to employ the teacher. But, I asked that question honestly, when we have all got these issues about SEN and supporting learners and neurodiversity and having rich and, developed classrooms, that's the kind of level of investment. Now, if you want that to be bigger, you're going to have to start looking and you're going to need to think about how you're spending.
Fascinating. So, Chris, we've got the perfect curriculum, looking at curriculum and priorities for children, and how education really is about serving the children rather than somebody else.
Yes.
We've got the efficient school, looking at money, resources, efficiency, cost savings, how where you spend your money tells you what really matters within any organization, including a school.
Yes.
Just give us a little insight into the 3rd and 4th books in this series. I mean, you'll be back to talk about those more in depth, but give us a little sense of where we're going here.
I think if you take the OECD kind of lead on effective curriculum, so what is it that matters in the coming ages? We're all talking about critical thinking, digital awareness, but the human aspect. So put AI aside, we need to be thinking about how children are thinking, problem solving, teamwork, all of these aspects. I've captured in learning over 40 years, there are 3 things that we would do well to think and consider. That would be creativity, character, and enterprise. Now, that enterprise isn't just business. It's not creating businesses. It's the unction to do something. So I understand and then I do. So if you took those three things, they capture all of those elements of critical thinking and problem solving and teamwork, and we can put them out. We know, and we're going to have examples. We've got school leaders that are doing it now. I'm actually pulling those together now. So character, creativity, and enterprise, and all of that means across the curriculum. It's not about exam results. It's not just about exam results. It's about learners being effective, being ready for work, being ready for life, preparing them for lifelong learning. So that's the essence of the effective curriculum. And then the leader's perspective will be, how do I make this happen? It's not, I mean, there's an idea we might turn it into a further book that will be make it your own. I think at the moment where the idea is that will be within the leader's perspective. Some people have got this idea that I can go and buy a curriculum and then that's what I'll do and I'll just take it off the shelf. My learnt experience is take all of these great ideas and make it your own in your context. So we talk about place-based curriculum, we talk about regional curriculum, so what works in one place. I mean, actually, IB is a great example. The International Baccalaureate, it can be delivered anywhere around the world, but it's a make it your own curriculum. So blend it to the needs and the requirements of your community, of your learners, and of the needs economically of your place. So it can work as well in Hong Kong as it does in Australia, in Brisbane, or in America or Mexico, wherever it is. Make it your own. So that's the leader's perspective. How do I take all of these things and make it special for my people? There's the package.
There we go. You heard it here first. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. It's so exciting to hear about the second book, which is now published, available worldwide, and to get a little insight into the books that will follow. And thank you also to all of you for listening to the PublishU podcast today, featuring the real life stories of authors from around the world. If you're interested, like Chris, in becoming an author, then please do visit our website, PublishU.com. And if you enjoyed this broadcast, make sure you subscribe for more. Thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.